Civil society groups, including the Institute of Democratic Governance as well as the Civic Forum Initiative, well, they've called for a postponement of this year's referendum on amendments to the 1992 Constitution. And the two in a joint statement said this has become necessary because the Constitutional Review Implementation Committee process, well, they failed to sufficiently involve Ghanaians and parliamentarians in the whole process. And the constitution review process by the commission has already been approved by Parliament and by Cabinet, and is currently before Parliament and the Council of State. And once approved by Parliament, the Electoral Commission will then proceed with a referendum. We know usually publicized are always a yes or no situation, but the question has been, what is the citizenry of Ghana voting for? Do they know the content of the amendment? And the parliamentarians who are representatives of the people, don't they need to make any input or have any contribution at all to the overall final approval process? And we know that some few weeks ago, the concerns were raised by sections of the minority in Parliament, and this was hugely debated for a couple of days in the media. But this again has been resurrected, so to speak, by the various civil society groups. And we have a senior research fellow with the Institute of Democratic Governance. He's also with the University of Ghana, Dr. Kwesi Jonah. Thanks for joining us this morning. And I remember vividly when I was asking some members of Parliament on this very subject when they aroused the curiosity some few weeks ago about whether they need to make the contributions or not. Do you think that Parliament needed to make any contributions or not? I mean, not mindful of all the legalities that are concerned, just on the moral issue of it.
I think members of Parliament, being the representatives of the people, and also Parliament being the body that legislates for this nation, needs to have the opportunity to make every necessary input into this process. And this is why we have in fact been calling for a delay or an opening up of the process so that Parliament and the other people can make every necessary input to make the amendment process successful.
And I remember vividly sections of the Constitution was quoted by the Speaker or the majority in Parliament, and also sections were also interpretations, so to speak, as to whether the Council of State only had the oversight responsibility to make the approvals and subsequently make the necessary, perhaps also applications or not necessarily inferences to the office of the Speaker of Parliament without the input of the parliamentarians, and that became a subject of debate.
Yes. There are two ways of looking at it: the narrow interpretation and the broader interpretation. The narrow interpretation, so to speak, is to go by what the code letter of the Constitution says. It says from Cabinet, it should go to the Speaker of Parliament, who should then forward it to the Council of State for advice. Now, this means technically the members of Parliament
are not supposed
have
to
no contribution whatsoever to make. The Speaker sent it to the Council of State for advice. But unfortunately, when it comes back, when the advice of the Council of State comes back to Parliament, then all that Parliament can do may be a first reading. And then it will have to be gazetted for 6 months before a referendum. So if you go by the code letter of the law as it exists at the moment, it's like members of Parliament will have no opportunity to debate, to make any input, and so on and so forth. So the question is this the way such an important constitutional amendment process should go? Shouldn't Parliament have the opportunity to make an input? Shouldn't Parliament have the opportunity to listen to their constituents, what they have to say about this, in order to influence the process and make it as successful as possible? Don't forget that the process of amending the Constitution is not something that you can do every year. You do it once in a lifetime. A Constitution may be, especially as far as the entrant clauses are concerned, entrant clauses are so very difficult to amend, you have to go to the people for a referendum, and you cannot be holding referendums all the time. So once you get the opportunity, let the representatives of the people have the opportunity to listen to their constituents and make all the necessary. This is the broader interpretation.
Okay.
So we think Parliament should have a role, and at the moment it doesn't. It doesn't.
On
look
the
like
latter, which you refer to the broader interpretation,
yes.
If you try to also make an interpretation of what the law says, it's
Yeah.
more like a moral reasoning than just a technical interpretation of what the law
I wouldn't
says, as you also try to outline in the first instance.
No, I wouldn't call it a moral reason. I'll call it a political, as opposed to a purely legalistic way of looking at the process. Let members of Parliament participate. Give them the opportunity to listen to what their constituents have to say. So at the end of the day, what do you want? We want to make amendments that will stand the test of time. We want to make amendments that will bring peace, stability, and development. Okay, now, so whatever we can do to achieve these objectives, we should do. Otherwise, if we rush through the process, if you go by a strict, narrow understanding of the Constitution, you will miss a great opportunity.
And now we have the Civic Forum Initiative as well as IDEC, your institution,
Yes, yes.
the Institute for Democratic Governance.
Yes, yes.
Some few days ago, you issued a statement.
You made a press statement, yes.
A full-fledged statement
Yes.
that was carried widely across the
Sure.
media. What really was the intent of that very statement you were trying to put out, or you have put out?
Very simple. The statement is asking government, Council of State, and Parliament to do everything they can to open up the process a little. We support the constitutional amendment process fully, but let us open it up. As of now, not too many Ghanaians know what it is that we are going to do the referendum on. Not too many Ghanaians. If you ask, even very big lawyers, if you ask them, do you have any idea what issues you are going to vote on in the referendum that will amend the Constitution? I doubt how many big lawyers know. The Ghanaian public are not aware of what it is that you're going to vote on. One. So that is why opening up the process, giving people the opportunity to learn a little bit more about it will help. So we say, open it up. Don't rush. Let us all have the opportunity to look at it. At the moment, we don't know. I know that 34 existing entrant clauses will be affected, and 7 new entrant clauses will be affected. But if you ask me, those 34 entrant clauses, what are they?
Just enshrouded in some level of...
Yes. Why should they be
Okay, now, is it not a convention that when we're going to have such referendums, etc., we have some period of some level of mass education of the population? And we've seen that prior to the adoption of the 1992 Constitution. I mean, it will have to just formally say for the current generation what they've witnessed. Yes. So, what makes it different? What makes you think that there won't be some mass education of the public before?
I'll tell you what makes it different. One, don't forget that this year, if we are able to hold the referendum, it will be 2 major election exercises that we'll be conducting.
Why?
There will be a district level election this year, which is in itself a much bigger election than the presidential and parliamentary elections because of the number of candidates involved. In the parliamentary elections or presidential election in constituency, how many candidates? If there are 5 presidential candidates, only 5 candidates. But in a district level election, every single electoral area, whether they are 35, 50, 55, has candidates. And the unit committees have candidates. So the number of candidates, so this is a big election. We are in addition going to have a referendum. The two situations are slightly different. The second point you have to bear in mind is that doing a referendum on a new constitution is completely different from doing a referendum on amendments to the constitution. When you do a referendum on a new constitution, the point I was making, doing a referendum on a new constitution is completely different from doing a referendum on amendments to an existing constitution. When you do a referendum on a new constitution, you are breaking away with most a non-constitutional past. There might have been a military regime for some time. You have crafted a new constitution. So when you go to the referendum, the matter is very straightforward. You are asking the people not just to endorse the constitution, but to endorse a break from the past. And many people, given an authoritarian past and a democratic future, would opt for a democratic future. It's straightforward. I have been living under an authoritarian military rule for some time. Now I am being given the opportunity to adopt a multi-party constitution that will give me my freedoms. So you go to referendum, the matter is straightforward. Everybody knows how to vote. It is slightly different when you are amending an already existing democratic constitution. You are making particular changes to the constitution that will enhance your democracy. So you want to be very sure that the people do in fact approve. Don't forget what I told you, that there are 34 existing entrenched clauses that are affected and 7 new ones, 41 altogether. Each one of them contains a different issue. So you have 41 issues on which the people are going to vote, and that is also a problem. Out of the 41, if there are only 2 that I feel very strongly against, that I don't like this, what do you expect me to yes or no? I would just, on the basis of the 2 that I don't like, say no to the thing. There are many very good issues in there.
We do understand the concern that's been raised by civil society,
yes.
But where lies in the case when the Constitution explicitly states that parliamentarians, well, in the technical interpretation of what the law says, may not or are not part of the process of contributing before it becomes a law in itself?
I am not so sure. That's why I refer to a narrow interpretation and a broader international interpretation. Why am I not so sure that the first narrow interpretation is the correct one? The Council of State is supposed to advise on the bill, on the amendment bill. Advise who? Advise Parliament. When you advise somebody, you are advising that person to do something. You can't say that I'm giving you advice but don't do anything. The Council of State is supposed to give its advice on the amendment bills to Parliament. What do I do with that advice? If I'm not going to debate, I'm not going to make any input. Of what use is that advice? That's the first thing. The second thing is, when Cabinet sends a bill to Parliament, the expression they use is to consider. How does Parliament consider? In the Ghana Parliament, the only way of considering an issue is to discuss it and debate it and make inputs. So I have told you that there is a narrow way of interpreting the existing provisions of the Constitution in a much broader way. Which one do you choose as a nation? The one that gives the opportunity to the representatives of the people in Parliament and their constituents to make whatever input that they want to make to the process. That is the one that will guarantee success.
In going forward, don't you think that perhaps civil society also needs to complement the type of activity that will be undertaken prior to this whole referendum, just in the frame where we have the narrow, so to speak, using your own phrase, interpretation of what the Constitution says, so that in case the parliamentarians won't be in a position to contribute significantly, even though they are the representatives of the people, civil society also will complement that by undertaking some level of community engagement and some level of society participation in whatever the amendment processes are.
Oh, civil society is a very broad and diverse group.
Well, we all do understand.
And as far as my particular civil society organization, the CFI, IDEG, and so on and so forth, we are prepared to help in whatever way we can to make the amendment process successful. What we are suggesting is that to enhance the chances of success, let us open the process up a little. Let us listen to other voices. Let us listen to other voices and make sure that we do once and for all the necessary amendments that we need to do to move the democracy of this country forward. So we have no qualms about this, no two minds about it. We are prepared to contribute our quota to make the referendum successful. But to make it even more successful, can we open up? Don't forget the risks. In a referendum on amendments to the Constitution, what are the requirements? There are specific constitutional requirements. One, the turnout should not be less than 40%. Don't forget that if this is combined or done close to district level elections, district level elections are not very well patronized in this country. The highest turnout in the last 3 elections will probably be 41%. So you run a major risk of not attaining the minimum turnout if you rush the process. Second, apart from a minimum turnout of 40%, you need 75% of registered voters to approve. Another risk. Another risk. If people are not very well educated, if people are not given the opportunity to make their inputs, if for whatever reason there is voter apathy, you are neither going to get the 40% turnout nor the 75%.
But we don't know that. These are all hypothetical situations, Dr. Jonah.
No, but I'm telling you the potential risks. Don't argue hypothetical. I'm telling you what are the risks. In every situation, you calculate your risks and you calculate the benefits. So I am telling you that these are the possible risks. It could pretty well turn out that without any education, people will just go and vote. But it will not be very wise to make such an assumption.
Why is it that educating the populace on whatever the amendments are is critical?
You are asking me to go and cast a vote on how many issues? 41 separate issues. I go to the police station. I don't know what the issues are. I don't understand the issues. What meaning would you attach to such a vote? What meaning? You just go to on that day, you don't know anything, and you go and cast a no vote or a yes vote.
Well, there will be some level of education, I know. It will be undertaken by
So the point that I'm making is you need an awful lot of education to get people very well informed about the issues we are asking them to vote on. Ideally, if I, Kwesi Jonah, had my way, I would ask for the people to vote not yes or no for the 41 issues, but on every single issue.
That becomes very cumbersome.
It becomes cumbersome, but in such important issues, you don't replace the need for the people's will to be expressed very well with convenience. What we're saying is that, it will be very convenient to let them vote yes or no on all the issues. No, but you can substitute what is necessary with what is convenient. Everybody knows that it will be very cumbersome. But if that is what is necessary for us to get a vote that truly reflects the will of the people, that is what should do.
I remember prior to even the establishment of the commission or the commissioning of the commission in itself, there were some, legal arguments that were raised by some academics.
Which commission are you talking about? We have the Constitutional Review Commission, and then now we have the Constitutional Review Implementation Committee.
No, I'm not talking about the committee. I'm talking about the commission in itself. So that came out with a report that subsequently led to the establishment of the committee.
Clear.
There were concerns that, of course, it was put together, and the commission is always going to be put together by the president, because that's what the Constitution says. Whether the president should have, especially on a matter of amendment, etc. We've passed that very stage. Now, the stage where we're now going to look at some of the issues that have been raised, especially we're talking about 41 in all of them. Okay. So some of the issues that have been raised, whether it's the election of DCs or MCs, and whether the president will have to have 5 nominees now based on that. The criticism has been that after the report was submitted, the presidency also had an input, and following that, they believe that some of the recommendations were massaged, and that was raised as the one of the foremost argument why we need citizen participation and parliament participation in the subject. How would citizens contribute to the argument, and the argument will be taken saliently and very importantly, and that may even at the end of the day influence anything at all.
No, I'm not so sure that I understand the question, but let me explain to you what happened. A commission is sent around the nation to collect views from the people. After collecting the views of the people, a report is submitted to the president, and the president says, I accept this, I don't accept this. He accepted majority of them.
Well, that in itself has been criticized.
Yeah, that's the point I'm making. Now, if you collected views from me,
because you want them,
because you want them, the least you can do is throw it back to the people
and say, we feel
these are the views you collected. Do they reflect accurately what you said? So the people should have had the opportunity even before the president expressed his preferences. And I believe that if that process had been done, many of the criticisms that have been leveled against some of the things that the president stated in the white paper would not.
For civil society, is that a concern also for
it is a major concern. It is. Yes.
What do you think should have been the appropriate?
I think the appropriate thing would have been that after the commission has submitted its report, the government just throws the report to the public to discuss.
Is that normal practice?
I don't know what you mean by normal practice in this instance, but a constitutional amendment process is sort of very normal. It's not something that happens all the time. It doesn't happen. If you have this referendum,
it's going to take a long time.
Yes, a very long time. So it's not something that happens. That's why I find it difficult to understand your normal, because it's not something that happens every 5 years. So you can say that a certain standard has been set and so on and so forth. But this, in my opinion, is what should have been done. Send it back to people for validation.
Some of the amendments that we're looking at that will be put up for a referendum. Yeah. As civil society, have you been satisfied with them?
We haven't even seen everything that...
well, many of us haven't, but we just get snippets based on.
We all get snippets of information. Take the case of the election of district chief executives, MCEs, and so on and so forth. What did the white paper say? The white paper said the president will nominate 5 candidates.
That's the white paper, but the report submitted by the commission was that they will open it up for contest, just like perhaps it's done in other democracies.
What the commission recommended is different from what the president, the president approved. Now, the question is, so now apparently this committee, CRIC, Constitutional Review Implementation Committee, is going to implement the decision of the president. Now, what kind of democracy is this where somebody chooses your candidates for you? Like NPP, they are going to open nominations.
No, the flag bearership race.
They say, no. The chairman himself will choose
5 people.
The chairman himself will choose the candidate for us.
One of them.
What kind of democracy is this? Somebody chooses your candidate for you. No, in a democracy, the people themselves say, please, we think you'll be a good president. We want to support you. Go. So the choice of candidates should not be done by somebody. But in this case, the president will nominate 5 people. The Public Service Commission will prune it down to 3 candidates, and then the people will vote on it. These are not the people's candidates. These are the candidates of the president and the Public Service Commission. And the danger then is that you are involving the Public Service Commission, which is a very small body, in a very political process. Because if, for whatever reason, 5 people have been nominated by the president, the Public Service Commission approves 3, somebody is going to go to court. He doesn't understand the basis on which he was excluded. And you are going to involve the Public Service Commission in a whole lot of things, something that we have never had in this country.
You mean it's going to raise issues of rancor and
so on and so forth. So these are some of the things that we could have avoided if we had allowed the people to discuss the matters further.
Now, do we think that the presidency has been very receptive to some of the criticisms that have been raised following the handing over of the report and subsequent issuance of the white paper and culminating in the committee, etc., and following that, we now have come to this very stage?
Both yes and no. Yes, because I'm trying to recollect, not word for word, the mandate that the president gave to the Constitutional Review Implementation Committee. I'm not talking about the second committee, the Implementation Committee. I think the mandate given them was to implement not just the white paper, but other matters that arose from the issuing of the white paper. So in a sense, the president was asking the committee, don't just take, but take on board other matters that came up, especially when the NCC and other bodies tried to disseminate the content of the white paper. So to that extent one could say that the presidency was listening to reception. But then what happens? We don't know. We don't know to the extent to which they were able to take on board some of the criticisms. We don't know.
If we go on this very trajectory, are we creating or laying down a very good precedent?
Which trajectory are you talking about now?
The current state of, well, the parliamentarians not making input based on whatever depends on narrow interpretation of the law is, or the strict interpretation of the law is, and subsequently just going to plebiscite or going to vote on the subject, whether to accept or not the amendments in block or en masse.
When we make a law, an ordinary law, after the cabinet has approved and submitted to parliament, our parliamentarians have full liberty to discuss, criticize, make changes, and so on and so forth. Why? Because they are the representatives of the people. They are doing this work on behalf of the people. So once a bill has been submitted to parliament, parliament is able to criticize freely, committees receive inputs from the public, and so on and so forth. That is in relation to a very ordinary legislation. Now, a bill that is amending our constitution is even more important than an ordinary bill. So I don't see why the role of parliament should be less than the role it plays when it is legislating. I don't see why it should be different.
But that's what the law says.
That's what the narrow interpretation.
That's
what the narrow interpretation.
You and I know what the law says. So.
No, you read.
No, because okay. Let me just search for it. It's Article 291 of the Constitution gives clear guidelines on how the entrenched or non-entrenched supreme the laws of the country. A bill, that is 291 says a bill to amend the constitution of this constitution, which is not an interim provision, shall not be introduced into Parliament unless A, it has been published twice in the Gazette, with the second publication being made at least 3 months after the first, and at least 10 days have passed after the second publication. The Speaker shall, after the first reading of the bill in Parliament, refer it to the Council of State for consideration and advice, and the Council of State shall render advice on the bill within 30 days after receiving it.
Yes.
Where Parliament approves the bill, it may only be presented to the President for his assent if it was approved at the second and third readings of it in Parliament by the votes of at least 2/3 of all members of Parliament. And
that
then
after.
Okay, then 292. It says it is accompanied by a certificate from the Speaker that the provision of this constitution have been complied with in relation to, in the case of the bill to amend an interim provision, etc. So all these have been stated, and now it doesn't give any leeway for parliamentarians to make input. They're only supposed to only approve, is that not it?
Yes,
By two-thirds majority.
No. It said the Council of State should give advice.
Yes, of course.
The Council of State should give advice.
Yes.
Advice for what? If I have no role, what do I need advice for? To advise to do what? The Council of State should give its advice to Parliament.
And to whom? Yeah, to Parliament.
To do what? I have no role. I can't make an input. What do I don't need any advice. But so the fact of the Council of State offering advice to Parliament means Parliament is guiding Parliament what to do. It gives a leeway. Otherwise, there's no need for the advice.
Is there some bleakness in
of vagueness
yes, or some ambiguity in trying to jointly interpret the role of the Speaker and the role of Parliament?
I definitely think there is some kind of ambiguity. That is why the various interpretations arise at the moment. If there wasn't that ambiguity, maybe differences in interpretation would not be very material at this moment, but there is.
The last time, or the last few weeks, when the issue came up for discussion, that was raised by a section of the minority in Parliament, was that whatever amendment that will be made based on the recommendations of that very white paper, and also based on advice of the Council of State, having gone back and forth, at the end of the day, it is going to stand the test of time and going to be binding on whichever party that is in power.
Yeah.
So what needs to be done right.
Yes, sure, I agree.
What political interpretations can we read in all this?
No, the last thing I want to see happen is for the House and the nation to be divided along political lines on this matter. I don't want differences based on party.
Is there? Do you feel that
at the moment that there's not?
Do you feel that?
I think that once we have decided as a nation that we want to amend our constitution, we should proceed in unity to undertake this exercise.
Do you feel that because the president is the president, well, the party in government is the NDC, and the way we play politics around national issues, perhaps there's some tiny bit of politicization?
There may be, but we need not be divided politically over this matter at all. I think the nation as a whole has accepted the principle that after operating the 1992 Constitution for close to 2 decades, the time has come for us to check our experiences and see which portions of it, when amended, would help us to run our democracy.
Well said and good, but when the argument came up some few weeks ago, it was the majority which was defending that's what
the
actions of the speaker as interpreted.
That is the last thing I want, because as a civil society person, not attached to any political party, then I find it very difficult to express my views, because the moment I say something, people will be checking to see whether it is pro-NDC or pro-NPP position, and that is very, very unfortunate. We must be able to discuss matters dispassionately without party coloration. And so I don't want this division along party lines as far as this matter is concerned. Let us proceed as a nation. Do what is right and do it well.
Based on what was gotten in terms of what views were gotten on each of the amendments, these are large volumes of concerns that were raised and collated and put together to represent whatever concerns that were raised by the population. Doesn't that in itself, the actions in itself, warrants them that the people, and once the people will be making input, then their representatives should be allowed to make input?
That's my position.
How then do we interpret the law in that sense? Because right now, if you look or you take a critical analysis or you make a critical analysis of whatever interpretation that have been given, that we're not getting that very inclination. We're not even going towards that stance.
No.
Of allowing Parliament even to make the necessary inputs.
This is our position. One. Amending the Constitution at this stage is in the national interest. Let us all support the process, and civil society organizations support the process fully. 2, if amending the Constitution is worth doing, then please, for heaven's sake, let us do it well. Let us do it well. When you do it well, you bring legitimacy to the process. When you do it well, you get the commitment of the people to the process. When you do it well, you do something that will last and last and last. There will not be the need in just a few years after this amendment for people to suggest that, oh, we didn't do the right thing the other time, so 5 years, 10 years down the line, there's a need to look at this again, and so on and so forth. No, doing it well once and for all is in the national interest. So that is why.
Why have we failed to disclose what the amendment clauses are?
This is something not in the hands of civil society. It is in the hands of the committee, the Constitutional Review Implementation Committee that did it. It may have its own timetable that, oh, let us wait at this particular point in time, we will release the entire range of amendments to be effected to the Ghanaian public and so on. That is entirely up to them. But I personally think that by now, every single Ghanaian who is interested should have the opportunity to look at the entire range of amendments proposed under the bill.
How crucial currently is the time now for making those amendments to our constitution?
How crucial?
Yes. Why is it crucial at this time?
Don't forget, not everybody agreed. There are some important constitutional lawyers in this country who said that there is nothing fundamentally wrong with the 1992 constitution. As a liberal democratic constitution, it is okay. So let us not be in a rush. Let us try it a few more years. But be that as it may, we did embark on the amendment process. We spent quite a bit of time and money on it. The nation, they did a very good job. They consulted so many Ghanaians. People, even Ghanaians living outside, were consulted. And so once we have embarked on it, the question is not whether it is important. It is, we started it. Let us end it well. Let us end it well. You know, this is not a time to question whether it was necessary to do it now or maybe wait for some future time. You have already started the process. You spend money, you spend time on it, human resources and so on and so forth on it. Let us complete it and complete it very well.
The IDEC and the CFI.
Yeah. Let me explain that.
Civic Forum Initiative.
Initiative, yes. IDEC is part.
Well, I do understand. I know that.
Yeah,
I know that.
No,
but they're two
separate.
they're separate entities. That's why we're referring to all that.
Sure.
Just because the other one is more of an amalgamation of.
That's right.
The various civil society
it's a coalition
concerns.
of civil society organizations. Yes.
Now, beyond just putting a public statement out and also holding perhaps public events, how have you formally tried to get some level of interpretation or answers to some of the concerns you're raising?
Oh, we are talking not just to members of the Civic Forum Initiative. We are talking to other professional associations, trade associations, and so on and so forth, who are also interested. And we also want to approach people in authority, Council of State, Parliament, Speaker, and even the presidency, and so on and so forth. We consider this to be a very important national exercise, and there's absolutely no need for us to adopt a partisan, sectarian approach to the process. So we're talking to everybody to make our points known. We believe in dialogue, and I think if you're able to conduct this dialogue very, very well, who knows, something good may come out of it.
But all these inferences you're making, you're targeting them at a certain institution, which is it the presidency?
No, not just the presidency.
Yes, but
the legislature, parliament, is Council of State.
So, okay, but then they are known. So have you tried to get some responses from these? If it's parliament, if it's the office of the speaker, if it's the Council of State, the presidency, or the committee in itself?
No, I'm telling you that we have a program to approach all of them, to put our alternative points of view across, that in our view we are engaged in a very important national exercise which enjoys the support of the broad mass of the people. Our only concern at this stage is how do we do this process and do it well to make it a very durable exercise. And then we have views to express, and we share the views with them and see what mileage we can get out of it.
How crucial is the role of the EC here and its readiness to be able to perform its role creditably in this whole process?
The EC is a public institution. We set up, the people of Ghana set up the EC to conduct elections and referenda. If the nation has decided to conduct a national referendum on constitutional amendment, the EC will have no choice but to do it, provided it has the resources to be able to do it. So the EC it shouldn't be considered a partisan body that is interested. Do you agree to do the... No. If we decide as a nation that we want to hold a referendum, the EC should do it. So they have an important role to play, but it's not partisan.
Well, we do understand that. Now we have the district level elections to be convened here. And you have already cited that's already
very huge,
a huge logistical event or timetable,
yes,
or
very
event
massive.
on its timetable, so
Yes.
to speak, for the year,
Sure.
and it has to add a referendum,
Yeah.
and you feel that that's too a crunching program for the Electoral Commission to handle,
It is
because you want adequate or good feedback out of out of the whole process, right?
No, I don't think the EC will have any problem at all handling the two of them at the same time.
Even if it's 10 elections in a year, it will.
Well, I don't. A referendum and a district level election, huge, massive logistical, a very big logistical nightmare. But I think they'll be able to handle it. That is not the crucial thing. The crucial thing is, what are we going to vote on? Do the people understand? Are there other views to be taken on? That, in my opinion, is more important than whether logistically the EC can or cannot handle.
How come the contents of the white paper on
not
what the ordinary Ghanaian was going to vote on not made public enough?
The white paper itself was made.
No, I know.
Public,
in terms of what
the amendments,
yes.
I cannot answer that question. I cannot answer that question.
Have you been trying to seek answers to what the amendments are and not getting them?
Yeah, you and I, everybody's been trying. Everybody's been trying. Some top lawyers say they have also been trying to know really what the issues are. But I think the committee that worked on it also has its own timetable, and maybe they have a time.
Is civil society jumping the gun?
We are not jumping any gun.
You're putting
the
cat before the horse.
You're not jumping any gun at all if you know the process involved. The whole amendment bill will have to be gazetted for 6 months before any referendum at all can be conducted. We are in June. we are already in June, and therefore, if we are going to hold the referendum truly this year, the time left for us to do.
Well, nobody said we have to do it this year, do we? We can start the process and do the voting next year, right?
Sure. Well, but my understanding, my understanding.
What we're told.
My understanding is that there's another major election coming in 2 years' time. The EC needs to prepare and so on and so forth. And we cannot have a situation where the EC does this level election this year, referendum next year, presidential parliamentary election next year, and so on and so forth. And I think there appears to be some pressure to have it held this year. I may be wrong. Yeah.
From what the CFI, IDEC, and the other civil society agencies have put out, you seem to be supporting the position of the minority. I mean, not that my question should be interpreted in a political sense.
No. I agree with you. I agree with you. No, we are not supporting any the position of any group in parliament at all.
I'm not.
We are acting independently. If for whatever reason there's some coincidence of positions as you have detected, it is. I'm
not saying you've been compromised.
No.
That's not what I'm saying.
We are not in touch with them on sharing. We need to get in touch with everybody in parliament. But what I'm saying is those positions were completely independent positions. There's no connection between the two. And that is the last thing we want. We don't want a situation where one's independent views can then be interpreted as political. That's the last thing we want. So that is why we've been always advocating. Let us adopt a national rather than a sectarian or a partisan position.
Okay. In various media reports, Justice Emil Short, well, he's been quoted as saying that in case of a referendum, citizens must be allowed to vote on each of the enshrined provisions rather than assembling all 34 provisions for a single vote. I'm not saying you are Emil Short, but how do you interpret what he said?
It makes perfect legal and political sense, because you've had that experience in some West African countries before.
Where
a number of amendments were proposed. Under normal circumstances, people would have voted for those amendments without any problem. But people go there to discover that there is a particular issue that they disagreed with violently, and that issue had to do with extending the tenure of Superior Court judges from 70 to 75. The people got angry. Because the average person retires at 60, you retire at 70, you want 75 more years. They voted no. So there is the danger, if you put them together, that some people can, on the basis of just one or two objectionable amendments, vote against the whole thing. Meanwhile, the rest are very good. So, again, there's also the danger is the other way around. Somebody disagrees with most of them, but he has found one good, one good amendment that is very close to his heart, and he votes for it. You know, to avoid this danger, let us vote on every single one of those 41 entrant clauses, and then.
Is that not a huge logistical overhead?
Yeah, no, but you are always citing convenience over what is right. You're saying that it will be too cumbersome, you know, standing there and looking at 41, so and so and so and so and so forth. So for the sake of convenience, let's vote yes or no. But you cannot replace what is politically necessary with what is convenient. You can't. You can't.
Do you think that we've reached a state where, or we've always been in a state where the political elites tend to dictate what the ordinary citizenry should be thinking? Or seem to be interpreting what they assume is the thinking of the ordinary citizen?
Well, I don't think you can completely get rid of the elites. Our democracy will, a lot of the times, be driven by the elite. And
indeed, all democracies are. But in a situation where we have the political elite thinking that they can assume or know what the
people want, it happens all the time. The reality, in fact, there is a whole elite theory in political science which says not just that it happens, but it is necessary. it is necessary. We call it the elite theory. That it is necessary for the elite to do the thinking for the people. So it is unfortunately a reality that even some of the most advanced democracies will have to contend with.
Well, sorry, I asked that question because you took me to a political science
No,
class.
I'm sorry. I take those words back.
But now, on a serious note of the subject of what the content of your statement is, where do you think we need to proceed from?
Very simple. Very simple. We have done a constitutional amendment process up to a certain stage. At this particular point in time, some civil society organizations and some prominent individuals think that the process, getting to the latter stages of it, has not been sufficiently open and transparent to the public. Can we just reflect, pause, reflect, and then open the process up, listen to other voices, and then proceed? It's a very simple and straightforward matter, and it's something that between the government, the Council of State and Parliament, a decision can be taken. So we have a very successful, don't forget, we are as eager as anybody in this country to ensure that the amendment process is very, very successful, and that the kind of amendments we do will be the type that will stand the test of time. That's
Despite what the law says the Council of State can do and can't do, or should do, do you think the Council of State can do anything at all?
Yes, what does the Council
based on what the position of civil society is?
What does the Council of State exist?
And even the position of the minority.
The Council of State exists to give advice to the President, and in this particular case, to Parliament as well. So,
as enjoined by the Constitution,
yes.
Right?
So if at this particular point in time, the impression they are getting is that people want the process opened up, but they can say, oh, let's pause a while and reflect on what the people are saying. Can we open up the process without causing too much damage to Yes, of course. Okay, so let us do whatever we can to open up the process a little, listen to other voices, what it is that they have to say. If it makes sense to us, to the rest of the nation, and so on and so forth, we take them on board. You know, so it's
Is it a mindset of a civil society that perhaps there's this very inertia to open up the process to participation of the public, and so as a result of that, all these perhaps delays or lag in trying to take the whole decision to?
I don't know what the pressures are on the part of the political authorities, the presidency, council of state, parliament, and so on and so forth. I don't know what particular pressures they may have, but I believe very strongly that as politicians, they also have in mind the 2014 presidential and parliamentary election, 2016 presidential parliamentary election, as well as this year's district level election. Maybe they're saying that, oh, in 2 years' time, you're going for presidential parliamentary elections. You'll be so very busy campaigning, doing this, doing that, doing that. We don't quite think that will be the appropriate time to do a referendum on constitutional amendments. So what do you do? And there's a district level election this year. We need time to campaign and so on and so forth. Let us do the thing and take it out of the way. I suspect this is maybe the kind of thinking. And to be honest with you, everybody in their position is likely to think this way. But let's look at the
we didn't give a synopsis on my next question, though, but I just need to
sure, please.
Elicit your views on the subject of what the political parties have been saying, that the Electoral Commission needed to do an audit of the voters register before it does an update of the registration of voters.
Well, this is a demand coming from some political parties, not all. Some political parties, not all.
Some, but that's the key political parties.
My own position is nothing should be ruled out. They have a very nice arrangement, the Inter-Party Advisory Committee, which resolves problems of this nature. If some parties have made a request, please let us call a very quick IPAC meeting and get the feeling of all the other political parties. We civil society organizations do participate in IPAC, but we don't contribute. we don't engage in the debate.
You are more like observers.
We are more like observers. So once a major section of the political spectrum has raised this, call a quick IPAC meeting and discuss it.
Okay, thank you very much. We've had in the studio Dr. Kwesi Jonah, a senior research fellow with the Institute of Democratic Governance, and we know that the civil society groups, they've ganged up.
No, we have come together.
They have come together and raising concerns over the amendments that were expected to be having to be making on our constitution, 1992 constitution, through a referendum that is expected to be convened after gazetting of the amendments, so to speak. We've been told 41 of them by a committee, and that will be after 6 months, but devoid of participation of the entire parliament. They call it the committee of the whole, so to speak, the entire parliament. And that's a concern for not only civil society, but even some members of parliament in themselves. So now, where do we take the debate? You can always make your contributions known. We have the social network page on Facebook. Join us on TV. I also have a page or a handle on Twitter. I should make those contributions known. Please, if you want to watch the segment AM Talk, or you want to watch the whole show, please log on to our channel on YouTube. Go to My Joy Online and you just type AM Show or AM Talk. You get the discussions there. Thanks, Dr. Kwesi Jonah. We hope to have you again sometime.
Thank you.
Taking me to a political science class this morning. Okay, egalitarianism and issues about the elites and what needs to be done to our society. Well, we're taking a break when we come.